Dead Express.
Well, that's one way to look at it. But actually, you're caught in the SF Vortex.
Perhaps today is a good day to die.
I think it's a better day to take a first look at First Contact.
Let's rock and roll!
Stephen King tips the scales with Thinner. Will it be a heavyweight hit or possibly come up a little light at the box office?
I don't think so.
Well, will the real Dracula please stand up?
I am Dracula. I am Dracula. I am Dracula.
We'll sink our teeth into the vampire legend. So grab the whole gang and get yourself put together for a look at the latest and greatest in sci-fi entertainment. Let's get started, because you know how I get when I get too excited. Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of SF Vortex. I'm Roger Lodge, and here we are to preview and review what's happening this week in SF entertainment. You know, folks, it's Halloween week, and this is our 13th show. Does it get any scarier than this? Boy, it sure does. Coming up on today's show, Robert Englund, Laura Parker, and Dr. Gordon Melton will explore our fascination with blood-sucking creatures. This show definitely promises to be a pain in the neck for our War Room panelists. Did I just say that? I guess I did. Who could that be? Come in. Trick-or-treaters, how are you? My buddies from next door, aren't they cute? Well, look, I got some candy for you. Here is a nice Mars bar for you, Milky Way for you. And don't drop that bag, it'll go in outer space forever. There's another Milky Way for you, and for you, a Mars bar, and don't forget a nice tape of your favorite show, SF Vortex. See you later.
Bye.
Bye, kids. Aren't they cute? Neighbors from next door. Watch out for the meteors.
Okay.
Okay. Now we've got a special treat for you, folks. The wait is nearly over as a science fiction legend goes where no one has gone before. Star Trek returns with its 8th feature installment. Now, Paramount's been pretty secretive about their hottest commodity. Can't blame them. But we've got our little mittens on their latest trailer, and we wanted to show it to you as soon as possible. So strap in and prepare to be assimilated as we take a look at First Contact.
Captain, Earth. Life signs?
Population approximately 9 billion. All Borg.
How?
Time travel.
They went back and assimilated Earth, changed history. I must follow them back. Repair whatever damage they've done.
April 4th, 2063.
You're all astronauts on some kind of Star Trek.
They invade our space, and we fall back. They assimilate entire worlds, and we fall back. Not again. The line must be drawn here.
It looks like the control deck's 26 up to 11.
Mr. Data and I are returning to the ship. Don't let them touch you!
Captain!
Data! We must activate the auto-destruct sequence.
You want to destroy the ship and run away, you coward.
If you were any other man, I would kill you where you stand. Let's rock and roll!
Destroy them. Watch your futures end.
We've lost shields and our weapons are gone.
Resistance is futile. Perhaps today is a good day to die.
Jean-Luc, blow up the damn ship!
No! We are not going to lose the Enterprise. Not to the Borg, not while I'm in command.
I will be first in line. Jonathan Frakes, the first officer of the Enterprise, has been promoted to director, and a nice job. You know, he directed 8 or 9 episodes on Next Generation, most notably Offspring and Reunion. And what do you folks think of those uniforms? Huh? One of our faithful viewers, Kevin Keene, wondered if the change will also be seen on Deep Space Nine. Boy, it sure will, Kevin. Thanks for your question. Our inside sources tell us it'll happen around mid-season. Opening this weekend is another highly anticipated movie. It's Stephen King's Thinner. This is the second weight loss movie of the year. Remember Eddie Murphy, the Nutty Professor? That was the first. Thinner is a psychological horror story in which a healthy, influential, and very, 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 very overweight attorney finds himself fighting a curse.
All I think about is
The toughest battle Billy Halleck ever faced was the bathroom scale. That is until the problem of weight loss becomes even a bigger nightmare.
you killed my daughter, and I curse you. Thinner.
When you have a fat man and you want to put a curse on him, you would think that you would curse him to get fatter and fatter until he explodes. When you curse him to get thinner, at first it seems like you're doing him a big favor, doesn't it?
Not in this case. No matter how much Billy eats, he loses 3 pounds a day.
Being erased.
The dominating theme is about moral culpability. It's about people doing things wrong, even small things, and the karma returning.
You think doing this to me is going to bring your daughter back? I don't think so.
Justice ain't about bringing back the dead, white man. Justice, it's about justice. Gypsy justice.
Justice. See who that was? Michael Considine. Remember him? He was the principal on Room 222. He's terrific. By the way, Stephen King does that Hitchcock cameo thing and shows up in the film as the town's pharmacist. All right, premiering on Halloween Eve on the USA Network at 9 p.m. is the follow-up to the classic movie Trilogy of Terror 2. There are 3 new chilling tales of horror from filmmaker and director, writer, everything else, Dan Curtis, who also worked on the original flick. And don't worry, folks, back by popular demand is the Zuni doll.
According to this, the chain is supposed to be wrapped around the doll to keep the warrior spirit inside.
Should the chain be removed, doll and spirit will become one living entity.
You know, we heard that after working so closely with the doll over so many weeks, that the doll was actually treated as one of the actors. Can you believe that? In fact, the Zuni doll had its own call time, scheduled hair, makeup, and wardrobe. I don't even get that. On the lighter side of the dark side, Showtime is offering up a Halloween treat for our younger viewers. It's entitled Shadow Zone: The Undead Express.
Welcome aboard the Undead Express.
Zach, a 14-year-old boy, gets on the B train from hell, where he finds the passengers are even more frightening than you would normally find on a New York subway.
This sounds weird, but this kind of looks like a ghost train with ghosts.
That's very close. Not quite right. Not dead people. Not dead at all.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it.
Undead.
What?
The leader of this ghoulish gang comes in the form of Valentine, a.k.a. Ron Silver, a vampire with eclectic tastes.
I'm sort of a vampire vegetarian.
Zach and Valentine become fast friends. In exchange for Valentine's protection, Zach gives his undead buddy a tour of New York City. But all hell breaks loose when the other vampires decide that they want a bite of the Big Apple as well.
To a turn.
wacky stuff. The Undead Express was based on the Shadow Zone books, a series of horror novels for kids by J.R. Black. Now, it's probably too lame for adults and too scary for young children, but it does have a morality tale that middle schoolers might, shall we say, bite into. All right, let's move along. Shadow Zone, The Undead Express, airs Sunday on Showtime at 8 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. There's more to say about vampires. Grab a steak and a fist of garlic. We're going to talk about something you can truly sink your teeth into when SF Vortex returns. All right, welcome back to the big show. It's SF Vortex, everybody. I'm Roger Lodge. Now, with Halloween around the corner, no Day of the Dead would be complete without night-crawling, lifeless bloodsuckers. And no, I'm not talking about my agent, folks. I'm talking about vampires. And the Learning Channel, or TLC as they call it now, is featuring a revealing documentary this week exactly on the sanguine subject, Vampires Thirst for the Truth. Now, take a look as I head down to the war room.
I am Dracula.
I am Dracula. I am Dracula.
No, there isn't an echo in here. Hundreds of actors have donned fangs and capes since the vampire legend came to the big screen. And a new documentary, Vampires Thirst for the Truth, chronicles the development of the undead hombre from Dracula to Dark Shadows.
Put your arms around me. We're happy now, aren't you?
This documentary makes a noteworthy stab at reviewing the more familiar faces of the legend, like Christopher Lee and Bela Lugosi.
I'm looking forward to seeing my fans again in my next picture. Thank you very much. Thank you.
But it also looks back at the real-life Romanian prince that was the inspiration for Bram Stoker. And it outlines the origins of the Dracula myth as told by cultures throughout the world. Plus, the documentary has the answer to most every vampire trivia question you could ask. Like, what was the original title of Bram Stoker's novel Dracula? Or, why is driving a stake through the heart the best way to kill a vampire? Plus, it even takes a look at some modern-day bloodsuckers.
I'm a monogamous blood drinker. I mean, it's not like a night of one-night bites.
All right, check out Vampires Thirst for the Truth on TLC, Sunday at 9 and midnight Eastern Time. Now, to further help us explore the fascination of vampires and horror is... like he needs an introduction, folks. He's Robert Englund, known to us all as Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And, of course, he also starred in V and the Nightmare Cafe. Also, the most beautiful vampire I've ever seen. She's actress Lara Parker, whom everybody loved as Angelique from the 1960s cult soap opera Dark Shadows. Still airing, by the way, on the Sci-Fi Channel weekdays from 11 a.m. to noon Eastern Time. And also joining us today, Dr. J. Gordon Milton, a religious scholar, longtime collector of vampire lore, and a nationally recognized author of the vampire book. Guys, thanks for taking the time out of your schedules to be here. My first question, I got to get right to it because I'm dying to know. Do you have a favorite vampire, Robert Englund?
Well, I think on a certain Howard Stern level. You know, I like The Hunger.
There's a level for you.
Susan Sarandon and Catherine Deneuve, you know. But,
yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, there was a great date movie. We used to go see those Hammer films, the Hammer vampire films with Christopher Lee. And I loved Dracula's Risen from the Grave. It still kind of haunts me and creased my brain a little with some fear streaks.
Okay. Doctor?
I think as a vampire, my favorite is still Frank Langella's Dracula.
Why?
I think he, more than anyone else, summed up both the horror and the sensuality that mixed. And at the time he was playing it, he was in the prime. As a movie, Near Dark and Innocent Blood, I think, are my favorite movies.
Miss Parker? Favorite vampire ever?
I guess I'd have to say Barnabas on Dark Shadows.
Ah, yes, Jonathan Frid. He was terrific.
Favoritism.
Yeah, that is. But let's face it, he was terrific.
Not because it was the show that I did, but because he was a reluctant vampire. He was tortured, and he fell in love, and he knew great longing and pain, and he fought against his obsession, and I think it made him a very sympathetic character, even though he was terrifying when he descended for the bite, and very, very sexy. At the same time, he was always trying to control his needs, and I think that made him, I think that's one of the reasons he was so popular.
Okay, now what about the fact that these vampires, I mean, these guys are deadly, killer, but still, they in some way are like sexual and erotic, and what is that all about?
Well, you know what's strange is in the Stephen King book, Salem's Lot, there's a great chapter where they describe this sensual, erotic moment as the vampire stalks this woman, and just before he gets to her for the kiss or the bite, she smells his breath, and it's the breath of an ancient man. It's the breath of death. And I love that because you never see that in the films, you know, but that olfactory sense that, yeah, these people are the walking dead.
Laura, what made Barnabas Collins so sexy?
Well, I don't think there's any question, but that the bite is a sexual act as well. And
kind of works for me.
You could never, segment, I think. You could never have had Langella without Barnabas before him. And he really prepared the way.
And it was always, you know, come to me for comfort, and the woman would come drawn by some power she didn't understand.
Like any man would have any problem coming to you for comfort.
Yeah. And then it was like true orgasm when it happened. That's
Can
how
we say that? Is that okay? It's cable. It's all right.
It's the offer of posterity. The offer of...
All right, we got to take a quick break. But before we go, a little trivia for you, folks. Stay with me on this. Who was the first TV horror movie host? We'll have the answer when SF Vortex returns. Couldn't believe it. All right, welcome back to SF Vortex, everybody. Anyone have the answer to our trivia question? It's Vampira. That's right. Actress Mila Nurmi began her movie hosting career in 1954 on KABC in Los Angeles as the first TV horror movie host. All right, now you can all sleep tonight. All right, we're back in the war room still with Laura Parker, Robert Englund, and Dr. J. Gordon Melton. Let's get to our next topic, all right? Now, the whole vampire, whole scary thing, it's terrifying, it's so popular, but why do we want to go to the movies and be scared? Doctor, start us off.
I think in part because vampire movies, horror movies, picture on the screen the things that inside of us we're really scared of.
Like?
And they, sexual inadequacies, our abandonment by our parents, being beaten up by the bully at school, whatever. They're pictured on the screen, and they allow us a way of dealing with them. We get to objectify them. And,
Mr. Englund, you agree with that?
Well, yeah, I do, but I think also it's a little simpler. I think you feel more alive after you've been scared. You know, if you ever lost control of your car and you recover in a skid or something, your heart's beating, but you do feel more alive. You've conquered it. And the same thing when you, especially in a collective situation in a movie theater, as opposed to just popping something in the VCR. I think to be scared in the dark with other people, you kind of go through, a group experience, and you just feel kind of alive afterwards. Almost like the same thing that happens at a rock concert.
Right. For me it works because you take a date to a horror movie. It does all your work for you. She's grabbing onto you. She's so scared. It's terrific.
You don't have to do that.
True,
this move.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to do the whole popcorn thing and all those tricks. Ms. Parker, why do we want to go to the movies and be so scared?
Well, it's very much like you said. I mean, when you're on a roller coaster and you're screaming out of your mind, you're laughing at the same time. You're having a great time, and it is part of life. I mean, it's within us all to want to fight or flee. And we don't get to exercise that stuff unless we go to the theater.
All right, there you have it.
We've worked very, very hard, I think, to make our lives safer and more predictable. And so adventure is sort of out of the question. I think the people who are running rivers and climbing mountains probably aren't watching these movies.
All right, let me go to my next topic. We're going to keep you on your toes here. Violence with these movies, okay, it's a big political issue now, and Bob Dole is preaching violence in Hollywood. We should have more responsibility. Where do you draw the line here with the violence, Robert Englund?
Well, I mean, obviously, if anybody's really getting hurt, if you're hurting animals, if you're hurting people, the so-called snuff films, yeah. And that stuff's wrong, but I'm sorry, but I don't think that a Frankenstein movie or a Rosemary's Baby or even something as extreme, and I think artistic as The Exorcist ever hurt anybody. I don't believe that. I think we should spend more time worrying about teaching our kids to read, you know, and planting trees, and get off this blaming Hollywood for everything.
Doesn't sound like a vote for Mr. Dole here. Mr. Melton, go ahead.
I tend to think that violence in the movies, and just like sex in the movies, provides us with vicarious means of discharging urges. It's a lot better to go and watch a violent scene in the movie than go out and commit one.
Okay. Ms. Parker,
well,
comment?
I think fairy tales were invented for children so that they could feel the feelings they feel against giants, their parents, monsters, those things they feel, they're afraid of, like you said, the bully on the playground. And we're just grown-up children. I mean, we love seeing these creatures that represent the things that we fear the most. And vampires represent death, which is the ultimate fear.
All right, I got a minute
risen
left.
from the dead.
I got a minute left. Let's go around the table here. Favorite vampire movie, scariest horror film, the scariest thing you've ever seen on the big screen. For me, it was Showgirls. Dr. Melton, go ahead. What's the scariest thing you've ever seen?
The scariest thing for me on films are mob scenes in which an uncontrolled mob is going after a victim who's innocent. And more than any horror film, that horrifies me. But for horror films, Psycho.
For me, it was The Exorcist because I think we know what every monster will do, but we didn't know what that one would do.
Well, you're not kidding.
We didn't know what the devil was going to do inside that girl, and it was just so scary.
Mr. England, real quick, we got to get out of here.
Brian De Palma's sisters.
There you have it. There you have it. I want to thank my special guests, Mr. Robert Englund, Lara Parker, and Dr. J. Gordon Melton. By the way, folks, you can catch V with Robert Englund on the Sci-Fi Channel.
See me with hair.
Isn't that right?
See me with hair.
Don't go anywhere, folks. SF Vortex. We'll be back in a moment. So you couldn't get a costume this year, huh? Yeah, tough break. A lot of mail last week, folks. Some good, some bad. Jose Maria thought our panel was way out of line and didn't give George Takei the respect he deserves. Jose, we'd love to know the reasons why you feel that way. Let us know. Robert Burchett in Irvine, California, thanks for watching the show. Email us with your comments, folks. There's the address. That wraps up another episode of SF Vortex. Happy Halloween, and we'll see you next week.
A haunted soul reaches across time with a message, and psychic detectives are there to listen on Sci-Fi Channel's Sightings. Coming up next.